So, as you may or may not know, I maintain a group for my MonkeyPod OG subscribers. It's the MonkeyPod Grove. And this question popped up in here today from a friend of mine, Ramona. It's any Customerhub experts here. Infusionsoft support advised that what the client wants to do would probably get a little bit messy. And she's trying to wrap her head around how she can accomplish it. So, here's the scenario. Therapist does a live monthly call, maybe like an online radio show, that sort of thing. And then she's selling access to the call recordings as a yearly subscription. So customers can sign up any time of the year and they'll get access to 12 calls from the time of purchase. So if I sign up today, it's October, I'll get access to October's call and then November's and December's and so on and so forth. They won't have access to anything prior to their purchase, and everyone will have a 12-month subscription of 12 different month combinations based on when they signed up. So, that based on one per month starting when they purchased. So each month's call is being delivered as a partial in Customerhub. And she said she understands that she could set up a drip campaign for Evergreen content, but nobody's getting the same package in this case, right? Because depending on when they sign up, the months that they receive will be unique to them. And let's see, because of their monthly calls, she said it's okay if we just do all of October together. So if you sign up on the 1st or the 31st of October, you'll still get the same 12 months as anyone else who purchased during that month. And then she goes into a couple different tools that she's considering leveraging to make this happen, and is just really curious about how she can facilitate this. So I was answering it for Ramona, and I decided to just cut a quick video in case anybody benefits from thinking through the logic on this or watching me build it, that sort of thing. So let's get started. So the first thing I added was a purchase goal. I set mine to any purchase because this is a test application, but she would, of course, set it to the monthly product that they're selling, or annual product, rather. And then I put two sequences out there that we're going to put them into. One is for content delivery, and the other is for my timer countdown. And I put a couple conclusion goals at the end, but I'll get to those in just a moment. Now, in the sequence itself, what we need to have is a delay timer, and we're going to choose a specific month. We'll say any day in that month. So I have to choose all of the individual days, so 1 through 31. And in this case, I've selected January as my month. So basically what I'm saying is that when this happens, if the person's in this sequence, when any day in January comes around, I'm going to run these actions. And the first action is applying a tag, which will be my permission for the January piece of content. So I would create a Customerhub permissions category for those tags. And then the second piece that I want to happen is an email, basically just delivering their access, saying, hey, you have access to January's content now. Now, I would just recreate this structure for each month. So there will be some ongoing maintenance for this campaign, but basically I would put a timer for each month, so any day in January, any day in February, etc., 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 and then a tag and an email for that content. Now, in the timer countdown, the first thing I'm going to do is put a tag to indicate that this person has renewed or purchased, right? So when they first come in here, they're going to get this tag, and then I'm also going to have a second line of logic below that where I have a timer, and that's counting down 10 months. She said she wanted to give them a 2-month notice, and then possibly a 1-month notice or a 1 week or 1 day notice as their expiration approaches. So that second line of logic there, I would have an email and whatever else. And then the top one, I would wait exactly 12 months. And if they're still in this sequence after 12 months, I would remove that renewed timer. So the tag was renewed, and I would remove that and then actually apply a different tag for the term elapsed. That's what I'm going to call it. You can call it whatever makes sense to you. And if they're still in here after 12 months, that elapsed tag is going to actually pull them out of both sequences. But the bottom line is going to be delivering countdown emails. So, hey, 2 months remaining, or 4 weeks remaining, or 3 weeks, or 1 day, or whatever it is. And you can use timers and emails to deliver that content as they get closer to the 12-month mark, and you want to encourage them to renew. So again, that would be, whatever type of countdown structure is important to you. But I've just done a 2-month out and a 1 month out reminder, so they get a couple messages as they get closer. And then probably the final week, I would send them the purchase link to allow them to then renew. You don't want them to renew too far in advance because you want those two subscriptions to pretty much line up rather than overlap. So instead of using a tag to conclude this bottom sequence, I'll just use a purchase of that same annual product. So basically the second time they come through, it's going to loop there. And I don't need any logic in my decision diamond. I can just go ahead and publish. Let's walk through this one more time a little bit slower to make sure that we're all on the same page. So it starts when they buy whatever that yearly access product is, okay? So I've selected any product. You'll, of course, want to select a specific product and choose the product, the annual access pass or something like that, right? So again, I've got any purchase. You're going to choose a specific product there. We don't need any logic here. I want them to go into both. Right? I've put them in both because I want to keep track of these two things separately, and you'll see why when we get down to these conclusion goals here. Now, if they go into this content delivery, you're going to have this set up for every single month. Okay, so I've got my Customerhub permissions January, a tag that unlocks the January partial, and a timer, again, that's a delay timer for any day of the month in January. So what I can do is actually just clone this now that I've created it once, and I can update the various pieces here. So this I would change, instead of January, I would change it to February, okay? And again, the days, I've selected all the different days up there. So we'll click save, and then this tag, instead of January permission unlocked, I would want to create one for February permission unlocked, or February content unlocked, or what have you. And I've got a Customerhub permissions category. I think that's a best practice for you guys as well. And then the email, this would just be Feb, right? Or for that specific month. So you will need to create this each month. But if you think about it, because the content is unique each month, you've got to upload it to Customerhub. You've got to create the partial each month, and then you've got to just create the next component. So as long as you're creating these at least 1 month in advance, the person will queue up on whatever the logical timer is. So if they buy on January 1st, they'll get this right away. If they buy on January 30th, they'll get this right away. If they buy on February 1st, they'll get this right away. So if they buy on January 30th, they're going to get this one, and then the next day they're going to get this one. But anyone who buys in the month of February will start here and will bypass that one altogether. Now, they're only going to receive these emails once, because once a step has processed, it doesn't process again. So it's not like it's going to run on each day of the month. It'll run once on whatever day they enter. If they're in this sequence ahead of time, it'll run on the 1st. But if they come in during the month of January, it'll run on whatever day they come in. So we recreate this for each month. And once the month has passed, right, you can actually delete this section, or you can update it for the following year. Because if you think about it, ideally they'll still be in here more than a year later. If they renew, they're going to stay in this section. The only way they get pulled out of this sequence is if they get the didn't renew tag. Okay, so the bottom line, what's happening down here is our countdown. So they get tagged for renewed, and 12 months go by, and then we remove that tag and we apply the elapsed tag. So that tag only gets applied if they're still in this sequence after 12 months. The reason that's important is because if they renew before the 12-month marker, what it's going to do is pull them out and then drop them back in. So it'll effectively form a loop. It'll pull them out here and drop them back in here, and that 12-month counter will start over. The reason we're applying that tag at the very beginning is to make sure that anyone who's in here has the renewed tag, right? Or is in their first year of having purchased. Now, the countdown emails, you can set those up, like I said, however you like. I've done 2 months out and 1 month out. You might do 2 weeks out, 10 days out, 8 days out, that sort of thing. But we're basically starting a 12-month counter or a 10-month counter and a 1-month counter once they enter, and then we're reminding them as we know the 1-year mark is approaching. Remember, if they renew earlier, it'll pull them out altogether and they won't see those sequences or those emails. Now, the top one here, this elapsed tag, is designed to be applied after 12 months. So if they're still in here after 12 months, that elapsed tag is going to achieve this goal because we know that they didn't renew in time, which will pull them out of both of these sequences. So they'll stop receiving content, and down here, the timers will stop and all of that stuff. They'll be pulled out there so they're not sitting queued in that sequence. If they buy a few months later, they'll be dropped in and they'll get caught up on whatever content is the next logical step for them. So effectively, that's how this campaign would work. The only real hitch here is you do have to manually continue to add the steps here. So if you're releasing January's content in February or February's content in March, you just have to make sure that the next month section is ready. So new people coming in get the new content, and people who are hanging out in this sequence get queued up for whatever the next logical piece is that you've added. So Ramona, I hope that answers your question. It's not a very complex campaign structure, but the logic supporting it has a couple different layers to it. So if you have any questions about how a piece of this works or why I did it one way rather than another, feel free to shoot me a follow-up and we can chat about it. For anyone else, I hope that this helps you. And if you're curious about the membership I mentioned earlier, you can check it out on the MonkeyPod website /OG-membership. Cheers.